You found me, did you? Well, today I want to talk about drawing rivers. And as you can tell, we just had a storm here. It's fairly windy, just had some rain come through. And so there's a couple ways that you can draw rivers. One is you can just draw on the map. But what I recommend doing is see how rivers work in nature. And you can do that by looking at maps. You can go down and seeing how a river flows to the land, or you can go maybe more micro, more local, and see how that works. And so what I want to do is I just want to show you how the water has impacted the land here. This is really dirt. It's really sandy around here, and you can see new water trails each time. So I'll show you that. Just one second. Okay, I found an excellent example of what I want to show you with how water interacts with the land. Now this is a very micro example like I was talking about, but they're really good to look at these. So let's follow this river. Now if you turn behind you, you can see on the hill, this is where all the water came from. And now all the water is trying to do is find the best possible way to get to the lowest point. If you look over here, there's one channel that goes over here, and over here there's one here. So the water is naturally trying to find the lowest way, and it merged here. And let's keep walking along this channel here. You can see, it did a nice bend here. This was obviously a low spot, and it comes along here. And keep coming, and you'll see that this is a pretty flat, simple area. Now it makes a bend here. It becomes more interesting. You can see I've walked along here already, but it becomes more interesting. It flattens out. But here, the water was coming in this direction, but it hit a higher piece of land, so it had to curve around it. Now this is all really natural, normal, but it's really neat to look at it at a very local scale. And here, the water had to make a decision. At one point, it looks like it went this way, probably sediment got pushed, and it found another channel. And then, as you follow along here, what's interesting about this is what rivers do. It merged into, let's turn this way, and you can see a larger channel. So this is just one of the many branches going to this main channel. It actually sweeps around, it hits this low spot, which becomes basically a lake. Okay, I want to get out of this windstorm, and I want to get back to the computer and just show you how I'd apply some of these techniques to drawing it on a map.
All right, now that we're back inside, I want to show you how I can take some of those things that I learned by looking at how that water worked in that sand and apply it to the map. Basically, the only concepts I'm looking at in this example are moving water from a high area to a low area, avoiding highlands, basically, so avoiding high spots. I want to look at how branches and different river channels work, and then maybe identify some flat areas and what you would do there. So we're going to go from this spot up here to this spot on the coast. And let's start drawing a line, a river line. I want to draw this an interesting looking river, but I need to avoid all these highlands. So you can see I've got mountains around and some hills. Let's draw this. Now we all know that rivers very often will start in the mountains, and let's do some big curves in here. You can see, this looks all great, but I've got to make a decision how it wants to interact with these mountains. I could go around them, I could go around this way, but I'm going to split them for this example. And that works. You could foresee a river doing something like that. We've got hills here. And what I want to show you here is something you wouldn't want to do. You wouldn't want to go necessarily over those hills. Something looks wrong. You can see that intuitively that something looks wrong there. But you can play with the landscape to say, well, the river wanted to go that way, but the hills sort of pushed it in a different direction. And let's pull this around. And this looks like it might be an interesting flat area later, but let's go around. And we knew the exits here. Again, I could come up around here, and that would maybe work, but it almost feels like the river more naturally would flow under those mountains. And there, you've got a main river channel. Looks plausible. It's doing things that make sense. Now, I want to add some branches to this. Very often, almost always, they will come from a high area, and like a mountains or hills. But you can also draw them coming in the middle of nowhere. Like that's obviously a little bit more of a highlands. Something like that would look good. One thing that you can do is you can make the rivers come from one side of the hills. You can also play around with it and make it come from the other side as well. Just adds a little bit of variation. You can have a river come over here, and this one would probably do something like that. And on the other side, maybe have another river go somewhere else, because they don't all join into that main river. But you can see I've got something that's somewhat interesting. Maybe a small river over here. Okay, now the last thing I want to talk about was those flat areas. I'm going to say that this area here, down in this area, is pretty flat. So let's make that into a lake, some large lake like that. And I'd make some adjustments. You can see it comes in this way, and it has one outlet over here, and it's got another major tributary that comes into it. Again, this looks plausible. And I can do this much more easily because I've studied rivers a lot, and I've looked at how they actually flow just in a little area like I showed in the, when I was outside there. Very sandy area, and I really like watching actually how different river channels are formed. Well, this is a great little exercise. It's actually something you can do that will make your maps a lot better, is just draw a random assortment of mountains and hills and say, well, I need to get this river from point A to point B, and draw it a few different ways, and you'll find by just doing that little exercise you're going to get some really nice looking rivers and some really plausible ones. Well, I hope you've liked today's video. You can check more at my website at fantasymapping.com for more tips and tricks, and I also have a book on how to draw fantasy maps showing you many tips and tricks. You can find the link to that in the description. Well, I can't wait to see what the rivers look like on your fantasy maps. Thank you.